Hi, everyone. Good evening, everyone. We're just going to give everyone maybe a minute uh, to dial in. Hi, Shanar. Hi, Yejong. We see some chats coming in. Okay. Hi, everyone. Hi, Tim. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a packed agenda, but I think we're very excited to just run through the robust technology powering Singapore's first and only CPF digital advisor, which is us. Before we start proper, I just want to get a few things out of the way. The first thing is this disclaimer. Just putting it out there, just for legal reasons. Next, we also want to give a quick shout out. At the same time, same location, next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Just want to give a shout out to our next event, which is on digital wealth planning. Our robo's here to stay. It's a collaboration with Value Champion, a much valued partner with us, and Sheng Shi will be hosting it with William as our guest. So with that out of the way, I just want to begin this presentation by doing a quick sharing on Endowus. In case we have anyone who is new or who doesn't know what Endowus is about, would just like to share very quickly about who we are. So Endowus is basically a digital financial platform where you're able to invest your CPF, SRS, and cash. And I think what bears, I guess, highlighting is that we are Singapore's first and only digital advisor where you can invest your CPF, but you can also invest your SRS and cash savings along with that. At Endowus, we believe in three core principles. The three of which, number one is access. We believe in giving access to institutional share class, which basically means access at a much lower cost, as well as exclusive access to funds. So for example, we unlock the ability to invest directly in S&P 500, as well as other Vanguard funds through your CPF in Singapore, and we are the first and only ones to do it. The second core tenet that we have is giving advice. We believe that giving good, solid financial advice is sorely missing, especially in this day and age whereby online trading is very easy. With a tap of a button, you can buy anything. And so we put a lot of effort and emphasis in thinking about how do we provide sound, evidence-based advice as opposed to the flavor of the month. And the last thing which we really pride ourselves in is really going the extra mile to cut down cost. Our pricing starts at 60 beeps, which is 0.6% for cash, and 40 bips, which is 0.4% for CPF and SRS, and that is our platform fee. We are able to achieve these costs because what we do is we rebate all trailer fees and we don't take any sales charge, and we work with the fund managers as well as the other parties that we come into contact with to reduce costs at every step of the way. So with that, I hope that you understand a bit more about Endowus, and I just want to move quickly to our motto. I think that if I were to summarize all of that, Endowus stands for helping people to invest better so they can live easier today and live better tomorrow and through retirement. So with that, would love to quickly give a quick shout out to our small but wonderful, wonderful team. As you can see, these are the faces of our entire team. And in there, you have our engineers, our customer support reps, sales, marketing, investment professionals, all rolled up into one. Even though we may be small, I think that we bring with us a lot of experience through many different companies across both financial institutions as well as engineering and technology. And because this is a tech-focused talk with Drew, who is our CTO, and myself, I just want to give a special shout out to our front-end and back-end engineering teams. I think that the people that we have in our team are some of the best that I've ever worked with in my career in Silicon Valley and in China. And so without further ado, would love to start this session by introducing ourselves. Before we start, though, just very quickly, it's interesting because most financial platforms don't really talk about the technology. And that's interesting because most financial companies just don't value technology, right? A lot of people, I remember back in the day where in a bank, an engineer at a bank is sort of looked down upon. But what's interesting is that I think times have changed. We believe that technology is the key to unlock a lot of cost savings and advice for our clients, which is you. And so, without further ado, we'd just like Drew to introduce himself, so that we can get to know you guys better, and you guys can get to know us better. So, yeah, Drew.
Thank you so much, JX. So I grew up in Korea until 15 years old, then moved to New Zealand for high school education. Then I moved to Sydney for my university degree. That is where I started my first career as an intern at JP Morgan. I joined JP Morgan's security teams as an intern. There's a bit of funny story behind it. I went to JP Morgan's internship seminar at my uni and applied for it thinking that the security refers to the information security rather than financial instruments. So I only found out the correct definition in my second round of the interview. So I was quite lucky to get that job. So it was an eye-opening experience for me. I learned a lot about financial markets and how important the technology is in enabling these businesses. Um, After finishing my internship, I got a job at Macquarie Investment Bank in their quantitative risk management team as a junior software engineer. Then I joined UBS Investment Bank in Sydney in their fixed income trading floor, working alongside with traders and market makers, building the electronic trading and risk management systems as an engineer. Then I got relocated within UBS to their Singapore branch in 2013, and I worked in a team building one of the most advanced live pricing system in the industry back then. After spending good 4.5 years in UBS trading floor, I got interested in buy side. So I joined hedge fund based in Singapore called Alpha Asset Management, where I was building the risk simulation system and the order management system for portfolio managers and traders. Then I joined Goldman Sachs Asset Management in Singapore in their portfolio management trading technology team, where I spent good 1 year building the rebalancing and order generating system. After 8 years working for large financial institutions, I became increasingly interested in the fintech industry. So that's where I made my decision to leave Goldman Sachs to join fintech startup Stashway. I was one of the very first members of the company and was responsible for building the company's backend trading system. And then I learned about Endowus and the Endowus's vision of becoming the first digital advisor serving CPF subscribers. I got super convinced, hooked with the idea. So I joined the team. And since then, I've been working as a CTO of the company.
Thanks, Drew. So about myself, I'm JX and I'm the Chief Product Officer. So I'm born and raised in Singapore, and after serving national service, like all of us, I moved to the US, to Penn, to study both engineering as well as business. I then went on to do a master's at Stanford. Throughout my academic, I guess, career, I then had an internship at UBS investment banking in Singapore. And it was really funny because back then it was clear that I decided I didn't want to have anything to do with finance. And so I decided that that was not for me. I moved back to Singapore to work for the Singapore government, the Economic Development Board, where for about 2.5 years, my role was to work with technology companies globally and get them to invest in Singapore. I think that towards the end of the 2 years, what really frustrated me was that, instead of trying to sell and be part of the periphery of technology, why don't I just be in it? And that's when I decided to move to San Francisco to work at Dropbox, first as a data scientist, then as a product manager, working on products like Dropbox Teams and Dropbox Paper. Dropbox was a great technology company where I learned a lot about a subscription business and how to build a really good and strong engineering culture. And soon, about in 2016, that was when ride sharing, with everything that's happening around with the Uber and how ride sharing was transforming the whole transportation as well as urban studies game in the US, I decided to join Lyft to work on driver pricing. And then after that, China came calling. We realized that China, there's just so much going on in tech in China. And in 2017 and 18, we just thought that we had to go and experience it for ourselves because we realized that everyone is talking about tech in China, in the US, but no one actually knew what they were talking about because no one actually wanted to live in Beijing or even in Shanghai. And so my wife and I, we decided to move to Shanghai to work at ByteDance. And at ByteDance, I worked mainly on launching a new product called Resso. It's a music streaming app that we launched in Indonesia, Brazil, as well as India. After about a year and a half at ByteDance, my wife and I had a kid, and so we decided to move back to Singapore. And in Singapore, it was very clear that financial services, so not banking in particular, but financial service was so exciting because there's so much happening here, not just from the regulatory point of view, but Singapore as a very strategic location to manage wealth, not just for Singaporeans, but also for people across the world. And so we looked around and thought very, very hard. And Endowus, with its strong engineering team led by Drew, was just so appealing that I think we decided to take the plunge and join the company. And so that brought me here, working alongside Drew in building this incredible company and this cutting edge platform. So with the introductions out of the way, would love to move on to our proper agenda for today. There are two main parts. The first part that we would like to talk about is what makes our platform robust, basically highlighting how our platform is safe and secure, and that can be broken down into three parts. The first is how we keep your data secure. The second is how we build our platform with transparency at its core, and Drew is going to take us through the concept of event sourcing. And thirdly, how do we keep your money secure? By highlighting our partnership and our setup with UOB Kay Hian to ensure that we never ever get to touch your money, which ensures that your money is secure. In the second part, we would love to take some time to give you an overview of our product. For those of us who have joined in a couple of times in the past few weeks, you would notice that at the end, sometimes we do an onboarding demo that can be pretty rushed or it's very focused on onboarding and signups. Today, we actually want to take the time to go through our product in depth and highlight some of the interesting features that we believe can differentiate our product from other platforms that are out there. So without further ado, and I know that we already have a couple of questions coming in, I think that we'll probably just take and start 1A and 1B that Drew will take us through, and then we'll take some time to answer some questions. So yeah, Drew, if you want to take us through the section.
Sure. Thank you, JX. So let me first begin by touching the first point, our cybersecurity practices. Jax, can you go to the next slide? Yeah. So before I begin, I just want to take a quick moment and we have the Avengers of the fintech, tech engineering, and product talent in terms of experience and expertise. So we have been able to create the best technology platform, all built in-house using cutting-edge technologies. We have really focused on delivering the best customer and user experience. And our platform allows to offer to our clients a lot of flexibility and scalability, and most importantly, the safety. And if you're an engineer, then please reach out. We're always looking for the best talents, especially in the fintech and wealth tech space. Okay, so yeah, the next slide, please. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about cybersecurity practices. One of the challenges for the fintech companies like us is that while we are subject to all the challenges and resource limitations of startup companies, at the same time, we are also subject to strict regulatory requirements as a MAS licensed entity, just like any other banks and financial institutions out there. And when we talk about technology-related regulatory requirements and guidelines, there are two main ones in Singapore. First one is the cyber hygiene requirements, and the other one is the technology risk management guidelines. At Endowus, we take cybersecurity very serious, and we try to build a safe and secure digital platform for our customers by meeting both of the MAS requirements. Cyber hygiene requirements were announced about 1 year ago to strengthen cyber resiliency of the financial sector. These are the legally binding requirements that all financial institutions must satisfy to deal with growing risk of cyber threats. These requirements will come into effect on 6th of August, and our engineering team has been working for the past few months to make sure our systems are complying with all of these requirements. And the technology risk management is the guideline that was also published by MAS to help financial institutions set out the risk management principles and the best practices for information security. There are many requirements in the technology risk management guideline covering incident management, problem management, change management, audit trail, and many more. I wouldn't go into too much details about them, but it's worth mentioning that the audit trail requirement is one of the most important requirements, and this is something that at Endowus we handled very nicely by leveraging the technological concept called event sourcing, which I will explain in more details in the later slide. So as you can see, the typical startup mantra of move fast and break things does not really apply to us. We have been entrusted with people's hard-earned money and their sensitive information, which we must protect safely at any cost at all times. We take our clients' trust in us very seriously. Likewise, the fake till until you make it doesn't work for us either for the same reason. My personal view is that consumers of fintech services have generally lower tolerance for mistakes by their service providers compared to other services they use in their day-to-day life, such as food delivery and the online shopping platforms for the right reasons. And going back to the audit trail requirements, one of the widely referenced international standards for information security covers the audit trail requirements in details. It lists the type of activities and the events that need to be audit trailed. As you can see at the lower left corner, it says that systems need to record the data creation, deletion, modification events. And the upper right corner, it talks about how we need to capture the user authentication related events. In our platform, all of these events are currently captured safely in our systems, and we achieve it by having the audit trail incorporated into the core design of our systems. So let me move on to the second item and talk more in details about event sourcing and how it makes our platform fully transparent and compliant to the regulatory requirements. So before we start talking about event sourcing, let's pause for a moment and think, what is the data? And let's say there is this data that tells how much Apple share this customer named John currently has. So the data is simply saying that John has precisely 2,000 Apple shares as of now. This is just the latest information and the latest snapshot of the position in John's trading account. If you take a step back, it's natural to think that there could have been some historical buy or sell transaction in John's trading account before his current state of holding 2,000 Apple shares. For example, on the 1st of January 2020, after John creates his account for the first time, he bought 2,000 shares of Apple as his first transaction. But on the 1st of March, he decided to sell 1,500 units for some reason. And on the 1st of June, he changed his view on Apple again. So he decided to recover his initial position and bought 1,500 units back from the market, which explains how he is currently holding 2,000 Apple shares. These past transactions that occurred in his account since the beginning, we can call them events. And we can see the relationship between the current snapshot and the events. You can see that the sum of all the events that happened to the account in the past is what makes the current state. In another word, the current state is the function of all the past events. So I would like to say that data can be broadly categorized into either event or the current state. And for the past few decades, the traditional way of building software has been focusing on the current state only. Systems that were built this way focuses mainly on keeping the latest snapshot correct by updating the database table and make changes to the current state directly instead of creating events. In the course of making these changes to the current snapshot directly, oftentimes the details of the events that triggers these modifications of the current state gets forgotten and lost. Event sourcing systems are different. If you build your systems with event sourcing at its core, the events are treated as first-class citizens. They are the most important, immutable facts that the system cares about. And the current state is explained only by reading all the events that happen to that object, where the object here can be your bank account balance or your current stock holdings in your trading account. Earlier in the slide, when I was talking about regulatory requirements, I mentioned that one of the audit trail requirements is to keep the record of user authentication events at Endowus, because we're using event sourcing not just for transactional events such as investment and redemption, but we also use it for managing customer-related data. Our system has a record of all the successful and unsuccessful login activities for every customer since the creation of their account. So for example, user creating the account in the system for the first time is recorded as an event, and the user setting the password for the first time also stored in a database as an event, of course, in the encrypted way. And there could have many more events after then to the customer's account. And in our system, and if our system wants to know if the customer, if a certain user is currently logged into our platform or not, so that we can decide whether to return some sensitive information to the user, the system infers the customer's current state by going through all the past events. Storing all the events come with a price, compared to the snapshot-only design where the system only needs to store the latest snapshots of the objects. Event sourcing system produce substantially larger amount of the data and events. So the system requires larger disk space, more processing power, and of course, most important, a technically strong engineering team that is able to manage and fully harness the power of these large and complex event-driven systems. So in most of the cases where the audit trail is not a must-have, I wouldn't normally recommend using event sourcing as a core design principle, but it works really well for companies of our nature where the system must maintain clear audit trails for regulatory requirements and better transparency. So that is about event sourcing. Let me now pass back to JX, who will talk about how we are keeping your money safe and explain our double ledger setup with UOB Kay Hian.
Thanks, Drew. So guys, bear with us as we get through this last section, and then we'll switch over to questions really quickly. I saw a question from Jimmy, and David Park, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your note. We'll look into that very quickly and then make sure that it doesn't happen again. So with regards to keeping your money safe, and I'll set up with UOB Kay Hian, how it currently works, and to give everyone an overview of what is actually happening, is that Endowus is just a platform in the sense that when the investor, which is you in the blue box, transfers money to make a deposit so that you can make an investment, note that when you log into our app and you go to the deposits instructions, you will notice that you are actually depositing the money to a bank account that is under UOB Kay Hian's name. This is important for a few reasons. Number one, because the bank account is under UOB Kay and not us, we have no legal right and we are not even able to touch any of the money. The second thing that happens is that after it is being transferred to UOB Kay Hian, UOB Kay Hian actually takes the money and puts it in a trust account that is under your name. Now, this is important because this means that your money that is held in a trust account is under your name and is not commingled with anyone else. So in the event where anything were to happen, you don't have to fight and say, oh, in this same account, I own 25% of that, someone else owns 1%, someone else owns 5% of that. It's very clear that both your cash balance as well as your assets, which are the units of the stocks or the bonds or the funds that you buy are held in your name. Now, all of this is regulated under the MAS. And we chose to work with UOB Kay Hian because they are Singapore's largest brokerage. Now, if everything that I'm saying here can feel a bit confusing, I think what might make it a lot clearer is to contrast this behavior with what other robos or other investment management companies might do here in Singapore. So, what other robos may do in Singapore is that in the same way as you as an investor, when you transfer money to make a deposit or an investment, if you open up anyone else's apps or log in and you look at the bank account that you're sending the money to, the money is actually being sent to an account that sometimes can be owned either by the robo or the or the robo's parent company. So basically the holding company that the robo is registered under. And secondly, they may say that your account is held under a trust account, but it is held under a trust account that is commingled, which means that your money, along with everyone else's money, is pulled together in one single account, which then makes it challenging if anything bad were to happen and you have to take your money out because everyone else will be rushing. So imagine if there is money that is short, how are we going to distribute it to everyone else? The point of all of this is to share that we have chosen to take this path primarily because it is the safest and primarily because it does not allow us to touch any of your money. And so if I were to summarize all of this is what we term the double ledger system. Why the double ledger system is beneficial is because we are a platform and we don't touch any of your money. This means that both Endowus as well as UOB Kay Hian, we both have an independent copy of your transactions and your account details, which means that it is impossible for any one of us to change it because both of us have to change it at the same time. And so this ensures that your data and an extension, your money and your assets cannot be easily modified or changed. What this entails also means that you have a trust account under your own name that is managed by UOB Kay Hian. Your assets are under your own name. The trust balances are held by Singapore's largest broker, which is UOB Kay Hian, and the transactions are executed from UOB Kay Hian by you when you give us the permission. So we are not able to initiate any transactions without your acknowledgement and your behalf. So Endowus never touches your money and we do not have any discretion on your money, unlike some of the other platforms. So I think that if we were to summarize all of that, what's the implication of this on technology and on engineering? It means two things. The first thing is sometimes our clients ask, why does it take longer for my units to settle? Or why does it take longer for me to deposit my money? The reason is because the bank account is not owned by us. And so in order for us to check the bank account, we have to go through two systems. We have to check with UOB Kay Hian, which then checks with the bank or the trust account. Now, if we were to own the bank account ourselves directly, we would be able to give you an answer immediately. But the problem is that when something bad were to happen, then it makes it so much easier to access any of the monies. And so in consideration of building a robust and safe platform, we decided, even though it is more costly, both in terms of money and engineering resources, as well as it might cost some convenience to our clients, we have decided to adopt this double ledger system so as to ensure that all of your monies and assets are safe, primarily because ultimately we're all about retirement and all about for you to be able to live better without having to worry about all of these nitty-gritties. So with that, we have come to the end of the first section, which is around how do we keep our platform robust, which is keeping our data safe, making sure that we use event sourcing to ensure that our platform is transparent, and our double ledger system with UOB Kay Hian. So right now, it's a great time. I think Drew will pause here and then we'll take some questions before we move on to the second part. So we have a question from Jimmy on Facebook that asks, does your software system have a failover mechanism, active and standby nodes in place to keep it functional?
Yes, Jamie. So our backend system is built on this concept called Actor, and the one of the characteristic of actor model, especially with the implementation that's done in Scala, the programming language that we use, that there's a actor. One of the most well-known actor implementation out there is the library called Akka. And one of the advantages of using Akka is its auto recovery, auto heal characteristic. So if there is any failure in a system, but the default behavior is it will try to auto heal itself by coming back to the life cycle. This is the technology. This is a concept that was built like 50 years ago, and it was only there as a theory and a computer science concept, and it was not really utilized until the last decade, I'd say, because the concept of it was difficult to achieve with the CPU processing power of the past. But with the multi-cores and every advancement that we've seen in the technology, this concept is now implementable, and it's actually being actively used by companies like PayPal to process billions of transactions every day. So to short answer is that yes, we have a resiliency prepared at the software level as well as at the infrastructure level, because we're running everything on a Docker container on top of Kubernetes clusters.
Thanks, Drew. We have a couple of questions on UOB Kay Hian, so I'm going to bunch them up together and answer them together. So a question from Flo on, does that mean we're able to log into our UOB Kay Hian account since UOB Kay Hian is the brokerage behind it? And then another question is, does UOB Kay Hian charge custody fees? So Flo, we have worked with UOB Kay Hian so that UOB Kay Hian creates an account behind your Endowus account, and the only way you'll be able to access it is through Endowus, because that keeps the system clean and safe. However, if you would like to open a UOB Kay Hian account on your own, you are actually able to do it. Just write into support@endowus.com and we'll be very happy to link you up. How you know, and as an evidence that a UOB Kay Hian account is created for you, is that you do receive a statement from UOB Kay Hian. UOB Kay Hian sends paper statements, but we are working on providing an e-statement solution so that you can have the convenience of either paper or having it over email. For Leander, the question on, does UOB Kay Hian charge custody fees? UOB Kay Hian does charge custody fees, but all of these fees are borne by Endowus. So when you invest with Endowus, all you need to worry about is the one single platform fee that starts at 60 beeps, which is 0.6% for cash and SRS, and it goes down as you invest more and more. Actually, now might be a good time for me to just bring out this slide. Yeah, so it starts at 60 beeps for cash and it goes down to 0.25%. And then for cash is at 0.4%. That's it. It's just one fee. It's transparent. And just want to highlight that this is excluding the fund level fees that you pay depending on the portfolios that you choose. Okay. So another question that we have over here is actually from Jimmy with regards to 2FA. The question here is, does MAS mandate that you have to have 2FA for login? So 2FA stands for two-factor authentication, and two-factor authentication means that you need two pieces of information to verify that you are the owner before you can do anything. Right now at Endowus, we do 2FA when you need to make any edits to your account. For example, if you need to change any personal information, you need to write into customer support and prove that you're writing it from that email. So that's the second factor. If you make an investment or a redemption or withdrawal, you need to OTP. So that's the second factor. We don't mandate 2FA for logins at the moment, but that is something that we're exploring to provide an additional layer of security and support. And we also want to share that the second FA that we are implementing, we are also exploring other ways, for example, email, so that you have two fail-safe ways. So these are the questions around 2FA. Moving on to the other sets of questions. So a question from JT for Drew. Drew, how are the events being triggered, and does it come in as a blob?
Good question. So events are triggered by all sort of different types of interactions that's happening in our platform, and some of these transactions can be triggered by the user themselves. For example, making investment or redemption requests in our system, or some of the events can be triggered by some external events such as market data update. So on a daily basis, we update our market data with the external systems, market data provider. And the fact that the new prices are entering the system that gets propagated into our subsystems as an event, and and then we from that, based on that event, we trigger other work processes such as renewing of your account market values and so on. And then lastly, some of the events can be triggered as a result of the interactions among our internal systems, which are triggered by the batch schedule or some internal operations. And yes, events are stored in a database in a form of blob. Yes.
Awesome. Andrew, another question here is if the position is always computed from each event since day one, over time the system will become very slow. How do you
Yes.
guys overcome this?
That is
Also,
yeah, yeah.
sorry, this is not related, but I just want to give the other quick question over here, which is why did you choose to run Docker in K8?
Okay, sure. So I'll answer the first question about the performance overhead that comes with event sourcing, and it's a really valid question, and it's a question, it's a kind of limitation that comes naturally with the event sourcing approach, and but then there has been many attempts to solve this problem in the community, and one of this approach that we are using is currently a technique called snapshotting. So every X's number of events, for example, every 50 events, we can choose to take a snapshot of that object. And then let's say if there are like 79 events that occurred in certain object, and the next time when the system needs to load the latest snapshot of that object, instead of reading from the first event, because we have a snapshot from the event number 50 already, we just have to load the remaining 29 events from the database, apply those events on top of the snapshot that we took from the event 50, and then recover the current state from it. So this snapshotting is configurable currently in our system, and we apply different snapshotting configurations depending on how often the object is being accessed. And this technique has been proven to be extremely performant. So we never have seen the performance delay because of it yet. And that's the first question. And the second question is, why did we choose to run Dockers on top of Kubernetes? That's a really good question, and I think it's because the Kubernetes is becoming a current like kind of a de facto go-to solution for running containerized applications, and the cloud platform nowadays provide really excellent managed service for Kubernetes. So yeah, it was a natural choice for us. And we have a lot of small microservices, like close to 50 different microservices running in production that interact with each other. And to achieve things like zero downtime release, we had to leverage some existing technology so that we can freely release during the daytime. So Kubernetes was a good choice for us in that sense.
Awesome. So we'll round out with a few more questions and then we'll move on to the product demo. But there's a question that I really, really like from Chin Lim. And the question is, will the different goals and allocations be stored in UOB Kay Hian, or is this information just stored on the Endowus platform? That's a great, great question. And the reason why is because one of the key benefits of using Endowus is because we employ an investment method called goal-based investing. And the benefits of goal-based investing is that all of us have many different goals at different points in our lives. And in Endowus, you have the ability to create different goals and invest in different products or different allocations based on your risk and comfort levels and the different goals that you have. So Chin Lim, the answer is that all of these are actually built on Endowus and are not stored on UOB Kay Hian. But what is stored on UOB Kay Hian are the really important things like the total cash balance you have, the total number of units you have on each fund, basically what you own and what is under your name. But all of these additional things, and that is the value that we provide, because if not, then there is no reason for UOB Kay Hian to do it directly. The value we provide and the reason why we have built this entire system based on event sourcing is so that we are able to run all of these complicated splits and then calculate your performances as well as different stats on your portfolios based on your different goals. So very quickly, a few other questions that I'm seeing over here is, will there be a mobile app? So the mobile app is coming. And because this is a technology talk, we are using Flutter to build it. In fact, we have a tech talk that is all about it. So if anyone's interested to really get a sneak preview, if you look up, a tip is if you look up Endowus Flutter, you would be able to see a tech talk by our front-end team lead, John. And we are working extremely hard to get a very high quality mobile app. So when I mean a high quality mobile app, I don't mean an app that is just a web view or an app that is just, simply put together. We have put in a lot of thought and effort to create a safe, robust, and a very user-friendly app. And we are more than excited to bring that out very, very soon. And I'm talking about, in weeks and months. So stay tuned and we'll probably have that out when we make an announcement. Okay, so with that, I think it'll be a good time for us to switch gears. So what I'm going to do over here is actually talk about our product. I've switched gears and logged into the Endowus product. One thing you can do is if you want to follow along with us, click on, there's a link below the YouTube description. If you click on that, it will bring you to endowus.com. If you've not signed up, we would love for you to sign up. And if you have signed up or if you are a customer, we'd love to just go through some of the details that we found that is cool in our app. So the first thing is to touch on the dashboard. What I really like about this dashboard is that we just implemented this feature over here that says excluding $300. What this tells us is that at any point in time, sometimes we could be making an investment that is still processing. What that means is that when you make an investment with Endowus, if you send in your cash investments before 12 o'clock, we will execute it on the same day. So there is no delay in execution. We are not like any funny trading houses that may delay or push forward your trades to get the best price or make the most profit for themselves. We always execute the day we receive it. However, it is processing because we are working with mutual funds. Mutual funds are basically not real time and they are not exchange traded, which means that even though it's executed on that day, we need 2 or 3 days for the trade to actually get confirmed because the fund houses needs to confirm it before coming back to us. And the fun fact here is that fund houses still works on fax machines. And so what we are trying to do is digitize all of that for you so that you don't have to make a trade and think about all of these archaic technology. We actually hope to come in and abstract all of these archaic things away from you. But the only downside is that it does take 2 or 3 days to confirm it, but it has been executed at the price date of t equals to 0 when you put in the trade before 12 p.m. And so processing just means that in the 2 to 3 days where we are waiting for an actual confirmation, which comes through a fax machine that we will then work to digitize, that is where the processing is shown. So you don't have to worry if your money is missing. The other cool thing about this is that we put very upfront what is your gain or loss. This is the simple, the gain or loss, and this percentage calculation here is the simple return. If at any point in time you are not sure what any values mean, we just have to hover over this infograph and we will pop out and try to explain the best that we can what it actually means. If for any reason you guys find that there's anything that's confusing, please write into us at support@endowus.com. We would love to know. Or you can write to me personally at jx@endowus.com as well. The other quick thing I would like to point out about the dashboard is that there is this uninvested cash balance. Now, this is important because the uninvested cash balance here refers to the amount of money that is held under your name in your trust account by UOB Kay Hian. So you could think of this as a cash balance in an account that you own. And if you want to find out more information, you can click on View Details, which would bring you to the Activities and Balances tab, whereby you would have a section over here that talks about your uninvested cash balance. This tells you the available amount you have, as well as your receivable amount, which means the amount that you are expecting to get, for example, if you've sold a security. So going back to dashboard, the other section that I would like to highlight is the investment value chart. Now, this chart gives you an history of your investment value, which is the value of your account of all of your investments. And these green dots signify events. And the cool part over here is that there is this custom graph feature, whereby, for example, if I want to see my specific performance from the 1st of June, because that is the day that I also made a similar investment in another company or another platform brokerage, I can easily do that and then check out how it has done over time. If you want more details, that is where we will go on to the performance tab, which I'll get to in a bit. So essentially what we have over here on the dashboard is that it really is a dashboard in that you have a summary of all of the important things. And if you want to find out any more details, we just have to click on View Performance, which brings us to the Performance tab. We can go down to your goals, click into any of these details, and you can access the goals here. And so the way we have built that is that there are multiple entry points for you to access your information, whether it is through the dashboard or whether it's through this side panel over here. So same thing for transactions. When you click on this, it will bring you to the activities and balances, which you can see all of your transactions. And that is something that we'll get to in a bit. So this is the dashboard itself. Moving on to the next tab. For invest and redeem, Chin Lin brought up a great question about goal-based investing in your goals. The cool thing about Invest Redeem is that you can see all of your goals over here, and you can pick which goal you want to invest in and then get to there right away. The same thing works for redemption. And this is also where you can manage all of your recurring investments. So if anytime you are wondering, I think I have a recurring investment on the 15th, but I can't really remember, this is a good spot to come in where you can click into it and then click on manage, and then that will just help you to automatically access that. Moving on to activities and balances. So we talked about this cash balance over here. The main feature I want to highlight over here, and this is the value, a lot of the value that we provide, is that at any point in time, you can toggle between any accounts that you have. So for example, my total investment value is now at $168,000. If I want to toggle to a specific goal, I can just do that, and it tells me that for that goal, how much is my investment value and what is the excess fee I'm paying per quarter. In fact, if I go under 40/60, I may notice that I might have more than one account under it. So maybe let me pick an example that has that. Okay. So we don't have that set up here. But if you do have more than one account, you are able to actually toggle to a specific goal and then pick the account that is relevant and actually see the account breakdown in itself. So what this is basically a super flexible way for you to just go in and then toggle and just get to as much detail as you want for all of your different goals and accounts. Another thing that we have here in our activity, and this is something that I really like, is that we provide details in a drop-down. For example, when you make a purchase, we will actually put down the date of the transaction, the amount that was bought, and the units. But more than that, we also classify all of your transactions into buckets. So for example, if I have a question, which is, how much excess fees have I paid to Endowus in total? I can just click on excess fee, and this brings up all of the excess fees that I've ever paid, and I can click into the details to figure out how much is the excess fee, do I have a discount, how much is the payable, and do I have to redeem units to actually pay for it. So that's basically a quick rundown of activities and balances. Moving on, the performance tab is the tab which tells us how we're doing in terms of our entire portfolio. So we have this same drop downs where we are able to toggle it by goals as well as by accounts. And you can see very clearly the same investment value and gain or loss that we have on the dashboard. On the graph, we have the same custom functionality, but one thing that I think that we do to aim to be very transparent is to provide you your returns. This is almost like a statement where you can actually see. And the cool thing is that, if I want to see custom, for example, I want to look at my specific returns from the 4th of May to that, I just have to click into that. And basically the custom report will be generated immediately. So if you want to do any comparisons or if you want to check on anything, you can just pick your custom date and this shows up immediately. We also have provided 4 different returns calculation, starting from the simplest, which is simple return. Modified deeds is the fairest because it does not take into account the timing of your investments. Time weighted is what we use to compare against different companies. So if you want to compare, and a quick tip here is that, sometimes some people may say that, my other fund has given me a return of 15%. The question is to ask them, what return is it? And any return that they say, I have a simple return of 15%, or I have a time-weighted return of 15%, I guarantee you'll be able to find it here and you can find a relevant number and you can even pick a custom date to match the custom date and then compare and see how the returns actually are. And the aim of doing this is to be extremely transparent so that you have all the information you need about your portfolio. Speaking of which, the next page to go through is the portfolio page. On the portfolio page, we have these same toggles where you can toggle between your different goals and your accounts. What we have over here is your asset breakdown across the main asset classes of equities, fixed income, and cash and equivalents. So the cool part of this is that even though I may have 5 different goals, what this tells me is a snapshot that of all of my 5 goals combined together, I see that I actually own 0.53% of Apple. In terms of fixed income, I actually own 0.89% of this maturity, Danga Capital Berhad, a Malaysian security, at 3.725%. And then if I'm wondering, okay, in my cash and equivalents, what are the top 10 holdings? This is a German bank, and I think that this comes from one of our funds. If I'm not wrong, it's our Fullerton cash fund. And then you can also see basically the different makeups and the breakdowns. So this gives us a very clean snapshot of what we actually own. And if we want to look at it, not just in terms of percentages, but actually in terms of money, we can actually just switch to this toggle. And this tells us very quickly that of all of my investments with Endowus, actually close to $30,000 are in equities. And this is a useful piece of information, especially when we have investments in other platforms or in other areas. Very quickly, this gives us all the information we need of what we have invested in. And you can see over here that, basically there is additional information that you can tell what is the latest price. And if you need any fund documents, it's all here. And we've put it out very transparently and you can click into it and basically get information about any funds that you want. That segues nicely into the last page, which is the model asset allocation. This is actually one of my favorite features. And the reason why is because this allows me to play around and actually simulate and think about any portfolio that I may be interested in. So for example, now I may be in 40-60, but I'm wondering, okay, what would it be like if I had been 100-0, which means 100% equities and 0% fixed income. This basically tells me the performance. So if I had went in on 30th June at 243%, and then now at 262%, this clearly helps me to visualize what it is and gives me information about all of the returns as well as the underlying holdings and underlying funds. So in one snapshot, I basically have all of the information that I need. And you can go into our CashMart, which is the new product we launched. Would love for you guys to check it out if you're looking for an alternative to fixed deposits. This basically tells you the difference between our core and our enhanced. You can tell what are the underlying funds and click into it to get any fund information you may need. So with that, I'm actually going to stop sharing. And actually, Drew, if you want to come on, I think we can spend the last few moments answering questions. Drew, if you
Sure.
want to turn in your video. Okay, so I'm just going to look through the comments really quickly and then see if we have any questions here that we can answer. Okay. Okay, so just moving on to the questions. We have a question from CK Thong on, I would like to see how much total admin fee we pay as well. And I think that CK, what you are referring to is actually the fund level fee, if I'm not wrong, because if you're talking about the platform fee, it's very straightforward. The platform fee, as we've talked about, is it starts at 40 beeps and 60 beeps for cash. To look at the fund level fees that you're paying, you can actually go to the portfolio. And actually under the funds, you can click into that and actually take a look. So over here, these are the actual fund level fees that you're paying, as well as the rebates that you'll be getting and the net fee that you will be charged. So this, by the way, note that this is an annualized amount. So you pay this basically over a year. Okay, the next question that we have, Drew, this is an interesting one from Gaurav. On the double ledger system, isn't there a problem to keep the ledgers in sync, especially when you hit scale? How is that resolved?
Good question. Thanks. I mean, yes, it is very challenging when you have two, so basically the complexity for us comes from the fact that we are sort of providing this virtual accounting system to our customers. This concept of goal, investment plan, and things like that, like how we are separating your account values by grouping them by different goals and things like that, those are really not relevant information to UOB Kay Hian when it comes to their ledger. So the complexity is to be more technical. Like the complexity of maintaining these two double ledger it comes from the fact that we are doing this virtual accounting of our own, which we believe is our value add to our customers, and we deal with this by building the reconciliation system, which we run on a daily basis, and also even if the customer base scales exponentially from now, our system is built on top of the technologies that can deal with a lot of traffic, and our system's capacity in terms of handling the traffic increase linearly with the number of nodes we're introducing to the Kubernetes. So scale is never a problem, but like in terms of maintaining the accuracy of the double ledger system, we rely on the reconciliation system that we have in place, and the test-driven development as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And to add to that, Gaurav, I think that's a really good question. And that is definitely one of the key challenges for any company that wants to maintain a double ledger. It is a cost that we have to bear, but I think that it is worth it given the additional security benefits. So for us, in addition to what Drew has mentioned, we also run a daily recon system whereby every day we would have an automated system that goes through and checks our accounts, which in particular is two things: the cash balances as well as the number of units that you may own, and make sure that that is consistent across both us and UOB Kay Hian. A related question here is, if you have two ledgers, who is the source of truth? That's a great question, and the answer is that it is UOB Kay Hian. The reason why is because they hold the trust account that nobody can touch. So if there is any discrepancy, we will figure out the root cause if there is any. But if there happens to be a root cause, UOB Kay Hian and the trust account, because it is physically holding the money, the cash, as well as the units in your name. So that has to be the source of truth. But everything that we do has an audit trail, which allows to really go back on both sides to figure out what is actually going on. Okay, moving on to another slightly technical question over here. Drew, the question is that how do we ensure consistency across databases? What's the latency on keeping it in sync? And is Endowus looking for eventual consistency or strong consistency at scale?
Sure. Good question. So, the shorter answer to that question is that we use both strong consistency and eventual consistency. To go deeper, so we rely on eventual consistency a lot because we built everything on top of microservice architecture, where physically isolated applications are talking to each other to carry on certain operations, wealth management operations, and so if there's no sensitivity in terms of latency, if certain operations can be afforded to run in asynchronous manner with some delay or with some acceptable delay, we try to use eventual consistency because eventual consistency comes with a lot of benefits such as scalability and at least once delivery guarantee, which is critically important for distributed system like ours. But if there's some type of interactions or operations that need to be synchronized immediately, for example, user submitting an investment request, we cannot afford to process such requests in our system eventually. We must process those interactions immediately and return the output to the user so the user doesn't submit it again. For those type of interactions, we make synchronous API calls to make it strong consistency. But having said that, the fact that user just submitted the investment request, which we handle at the API level for the strong immediate consistency. Also, that events get propagated to the downstream systems in an eventual manner, which in that sense, in that way, we also achieve the eventual consistencies for some other downstream systems which can afford to have certain delay.
Cool. Thanks, Drew. I'm going to switch back into our account because we have a couple of questions. So quick question from Colin. Where do you see all these returns? Colin, it's under performance. So if you go to endowus.com/performance and log in, you would be able to see all of that here. The other question we have over here is what is the purpose of accounts? And I think that question came from Gaurav. And so just to quickly show you guys, a goal, for example, general wealth accumulation, could be invested in different accounts. And Gaurav, you're right, it means that you have different source of funds. You have SRS, CPF, and cash. And I would just like to highlight over here. So for example, this is general wealth accumulation. If I were to go into my goal, I can see very clearly that of the $26,000 investment value, it is actually broken down into these three separate sources of funds. Now, our platform is created in such a way that is unique and there's a lot of technology behind it because these three sources of funds actually have to be kept separate. CPF has to come through an Asian bank that is mandated under the CPF investment scheme. SRS is also a similar Asian bank, but it's a different bank account. And SGD Cash, as you guys know, is also a different bank account. And so the ability of what our platform does is to work with UOB Kay Hian to make sure that these three sources of funds are completely separate. But the beauty of goal-based investing is that they can work towards the same goal. And so you can have all of that under one roof. And the reason why you can select by account is because if you go under performance and you pick a specific goal, different accounts could have different values and different performance. So this gives you the ability to switch and toggle between different things. The other, so that's that. The other question that we have from Chin Lim is, will there be any interest in the uninvested cash balance? So for example, this amount here, will there be any interest? So the easiest way to answer that is actually to just look into under activity, and there is actually here a bucket called interest received. If you click on interest received, you basically see all of the interest that you receive from your cash deposits over there. This is a rate that is determined by UOB Kay Hian, but the last time we checked, it is at 0.1%. The second part of this question is that if you're interested in putting money and parking money in before investing, maybe suggest checking out Cashmart. Cashmart would be the preferred solution because with Cashmart, it gives you, 1.1 or 1.3 or up to 2.2% as you are waiting for investments. So one of our top requested features is, can we build a flow to automatically invest a recurring amount from a Cashmart goal into a regular equities and fixed income goal? And that is something that we are working very hard to deliver. The next question from Colin. Drew, how big is your tech team running all this amazing tech work? Is everyone in Singapore or are some outsourced?
Thanks for that, Colin. We indeed have amazing tech team. And we actually like to think of us as a product and engineering team. So inclusive of JX's product team and engineering team, because we always work together. And JX, if I'm not wrong, we are about 15 people currently,
Yep.
right? 15 in the product engineering team. And we don't outsource, but we have engineers working for us from Indonesia and Korea. They're not really outsourced agents. They are actually the permanent employees of our company. So yeah.
Yep. So one of the things, Colin, that amazed me about this team is that to find 15 world-class engineers, and when I say world-class, I truly mean it, because working with the best engineers in Silicon Valley at Dropbox and at Lyft, and working with the best engineers at ByteDance in China, it was amazing to find such high-quality engineers, all insourced. It's so easy to find a lot of financial companies that outsource the tech to many different parts of the world, but it's so amazing to see all of this over here. And then to have all that. So that is definitely, a big reason why. Okay, I think that we are coming towards the end of our session today. I think that we would just like to close off this session by, again, thanking everyone for your time over here. Thanks for joining us from 7 to 8 o'clock on a Wednesday. Especially, I know some of you guys are parents and some of you guys are actually dialing in from different parts of the world. If there is anything that we can be helpful, we would love to continue the conversations. Jimmy, Gaurav, Chin Lim, thank you, and Colin, thank you so much for all of these questions. We would love to continue. You can reach me at jx@endowus.com, and you can reach drew@endowus.com. Reach out to us on anything and any further questions. Feel free to shoot us an email, give us a call. We would love to chat further. The one thing I would love to find out more is that a lot of people are talking about SingPass 2FA login. Would love to hear your thoughts on that. Is that preferred? Do you guys feel a lot safer or more secure? Definitely hit us up in the chat or email us, and we would love to continue chatting. But if not, thank you everyone, and we'll see you guys again at our Endowus live session next week.
Thank you, everyone.